Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a minisode of Baka. What is a minisode? That is where we talk about random anime topics or whatever we want to talk about in between the episodes of where we talk about anime we watched over the past 2 weeks and discuss like a book club. We are the Baka Club. And to help me discuss the topic tonight, which is about time skips in anime, I need the help of my other host. We have the long hair to my don't care, Jeremy.
You're making these up on the spot, aren't you?
It's a minisode, of course I am.
Okay. I'm doing well, and I know in the last episode I talked about a show that I watched that I really loved. This time I'm going to mention a show that I watched that I really, really, really hate. So Wheel of Time came out with the first 2 episodes on Amazon Prime, and I have been waiting for a Wheel of Time series for, well, it feels like eons. But this is not the series I wanted. There are some basic fundamental rules that were established by Robert Jordan in this universe that, like, they set up the themes of what all the books are about. They set up the logic of how the magic system and the history played out and about the future. And because the Wheel of Time is like this wheel that just repeats itself, all the events keep happening over and over again. If you change one of these fundamental things, you just unravel the whole thing. And they do that within like the first 5 minutes of the first episode. They unravel the entirety of the most important foundational aspect of it, which is that, like, you have these 2 magical sources. One is only accessible by men, one is only accessible by women. And they're like, oh, it's too complicated. You'll have to read the books. There's only 14. And it's really
they're big books too.
well worth it. But I recommend the books, and that you stay the hell away from the Amazon Prime version. It is horrid. So anyways, Yay! That was my intro.
Our other host, keeping it weird with his beard, it's Jason.
Nice. On top of, I'm gonna flub this really hard because I cannot remember the title of this one, but yeah, on top of our other anime we just watched, the case study of Vanitas. So if you wanted to go watch our other podcast on that, yeah, because this will come out before or after. I don't remember. Anyways,
yes, after.
I've been watching Grimoire, Ashes and Illusions, and it's the reason is because we've seen a lot of isekai on this podcast, and that's basically like the grandfather of isekai in like modern anime. And so it's, it got a lot of hate as far as reviews, but I'm finding it fascinating as far as like character development. It's got some really immature, like sexualized scenes, I guess you could say, but it's you take these kids, but they don't give them any backstory whatsoever and throw them into the isekai world, and they have no money, they have no powers, they're just kids, like not little kids, or they're probably like 18 to 20, and they've got to do the RPG thing, but in terrifying circumstances, and it's actually pretty neat.
You said that was Grimoire. Is that Grimoire of Zero?
No. Is it Grimmer? Grimgar.
Oh, Grimgar.
Ashes and Illusions.
Yes,
Grimgar.
Grimgar was
Grimgar.
Great. Unfortunately, I heard they're not going to make another season of it.
But yeah.
All right, my name is Troy. I like you guys. you will feel very unleashed in this mini episode, and I don't really have much to say of stuff I've done, so I'm gonna go on a little rant, and it will tie into something I've done recently. I mentioned in our last episode I've been watching Only Murders in the Building, so this comes back to that. But first, I'm gonna start with there is no song played on more radio stations in the world, that I believe, than the song "Sledgehammer" by Peter Gabriel. You know, I want to be your sledgehammer. It's a terrible song. It plays every time I hear the radio on. And I don't think any person in the world has ever said, I want to hear the song Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. And yet I hear that song more than anything else. And I was complaining about it to my wife a week ago. It was on. It was on. We were in a restaurant and it was on. And I just got really mad. And I'm like, it's not even like reference, like if like classic songs, you know, that get referenced in movies or TV shows. No one has even said the word sledgehammer ever referencing this song. I was watching Only Murders in the Building. In the second episode, they believe the singer Sting, who lives in their building, might be the killer. And they're talking to Selena Gomez about it. And she's like, I don't know who that is. And so she says, oh, wait, is he the one who sings Sledgehammer? And they're like, no, that's Peter Gabriel. And so like a week after I made the statement that no one's ever referenced Sledgehammer, the TV show I'm watching references, but it is a terrible song and it should not be on the radio nearly as often as it is, and I have no idea why it is.
I've never heard it.
Total off topic. Since you mentioned Sting, over under that he shows up in Dune Part 2.
0. It's going to be Harry Styles.
Oh, come on.
That would fit. All right. That's all I wanted to say. We need to talk about our minisode topic, which is related to anime, especially because we've had some anime recently that did this. Well, we wanted to talk about the use of time skips in your narrative. Probably Naruto Shippuden is one of the biggest ones. It's where you're going along, you have your story, and then you stop the story, come back later, and then suddenly, hey, we all have all new character arcs and all that stuff. So I just wanted to bring that up with you guys and see when you think a time skip is appropriate, what's a good use for it, or what's a bad use for it, how you feel about it. Anime that do it well, anime that do it bad, all that stuff. Who wants to kick us off?
I don't mind going first. Because the first thing that pops into my mind, and I'm going to preface this with a little bit. I have not seen Game of Thrones season to season, end to end. I know a lot about it, but I have not watched the whole thing. But it's one of the first things that comes to mind when we talk about time skips, because I think from what I've seen and what I've heard, it did it really well, and then it did it really bad. And I think the big difference between the two, because they established early on in the early seasons that it took a long time to get to places, right? Because they had horseback and carriage. So if you wanted to send a letter, or if you needed to travel somewhere to get an army or whatever, it took some time. The problem with time skips is if you allow certain story beats or certain developments to happen off screen without sufficient explanation or at least plausibility to what happened during that time skip, it can drastically pull away from your story and lose your audience. And I think that's probably what happened a lot in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, because you had all of a sudden these big time skips because they didn't want to deal with having to travel between places. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this person's dead, and oh, this person grew up, or this person is now this lord. And it's like, where are we going? And so, yeah, that's the first thing that pops into my mind is you got to be really careful with where you go with your time skips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I find that like anytime you have a time skip where you're left with some kind of like this acted more as to get from point A to point B rather than to either develop some kind of mystery that's going to be unraveled now as the time skip is looked at, as you get to see these things that happen inside the time skip. If you're not doing something like that, then I think it can really be a trap, because essentially it almost seems like a way to sort of immerse or endear the audience to the characters in the world, because you're saying, hey, you were here, you were anchored at this point, and now we're just going to run forward with things. We're going to skip ahead in time. But remember that you were anchored at that point. And so now I at least find myself a bit more connected to a story when it does a time skip like that. So then if they don't land that well, and they do like what you're describing, where there's obvious things that just don't make sense, or there's contradictory issues, or for me, in the case of Game of Thrones, there's just stuff that was never written in the book, and I don't like the way that they went with it instead. It seems like a theme for me today. I'm a real stickler for the books. But
I was like, okay, I don't want to defend Game of Thrones. That ended in a garbage can. But
yeah.
Also, the writer didn't finish the book. Still hasn't finished the books. So they only get so much crap for that, especially.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there was a funny meme I saw a little while back where they were like, "Hey, what's George R.R. Martin been up to?" And it's like there's all these football posts. Like,
yeah, like guy writes about the Jets a lot, and please write a book, sir.
Write a book. But anyways, yeah,
we're an anime podcast. Just remind the audience, we are not a Game of Thrones podcast. We are an anime podcast.
Hey, but if they made a Game of Thrones anime, we would check it out for sure. We'd watch the first 2 episodes.
It's called Vinland Saga. It was amazing.
That's true. That is true. The other time that I think that time skips are really useful and wouldn't actually be damaging is to skip over things that are going to be just boring, right? Like the big one that I remember is Dragon Ball Z's time skip when they're training, right? You just get like these little moments of like Krillin and Yamcha and Tien and Chao. Yes, I remembered them all. Training to be the Z fighters, right? But you're not there every step of the way. You don't have to have like 2 or 3 seasons to let that time go by. You might as well just skip ahead a bit. Now they did have some really crappy ones where they landed poorly, like the android training period of time when they were preparing for 17 and 18. And then that just didn't wind up to be as satisfying. But yeah, I prefer time skips, actually. Like if it's possible to include them in a story, I really like it.
If you got a lot of story, not a lot of time, you need a montage.
Montage. Please don't sue us, Trey Parker. So when I was thinking about this, the one that I always hit was like just shonen almost need time skips. Naruto, obviously, like I said, has the biggest one when it went from Naruto Shippuden. There's a huge time skip in there. I'm pretty sure Bleach has one. I know One Piece has one. Dragon Ball Z had little ones, and Dragon Ball Z doesn't do this as much because Dragon Ball Z doesn't rely on the flashback in the middle of a fight to make the fight more emotional. But when you're a shonen and you've had all your main characters have their big fights and have their flashbacks, and you don't have any interesting villains to have flashbacks with for the future fights, you do a time skip. Now I have new backstories to do flashbacks to in my fights. It almost seems like an essential, especially for these very long form anime, that we have to do a time skip to once again create that drama in the middle of a fight where we can't have without that mystery of what was in the past. So we time skip every once in a while. It does seem essential. The anime I thought of that what has been my favorite with time skips is Vivi, Fluoride's Eye, because every arc had this big time skip, and then it's almost like you got a fresh story and you had to figure out, okay, what's going on with Vivi at this point? A lot has changed, and so you're getting to it. It creates this mystery of like, okay, I'm looking for nuggets of information. You remember there was the arc where she was a new character. You're like, okay, what is happening? What went on in this time skip? That kept what was already a compelling story great, but then I'm digging for that background. So every nugget they feed me, I'm just like, yeah, gimme. And it kept that fresh and going. Almost, you can't do that with every anime. Vivi cheated a little bit to get to do that, but it was one of the best uses I've ever seen. So I really enjoyed that in their anime.
Yeah, I can only imagine if we were watching To Your Eternity and then like from rock to Wolf, it was, a season and a half.
Oh God.
That wouldn't be very compelling. But the time skip that I actually did not prefer was the one we see in the final episode. And I am going, hold up. Not only has multiple years gone by, but he seems so much more mature, and we only get a flash of him. I'm like, oh, what happened? Like, what's allowed him to not have to change? What's allowed him to be where he is? Like, I've got so many questions, and that's one of those context things that, we're going to end up either with flashbacks, or they're just not going to address it at all. I'm really curious because what happened to the Knockers during that whole time?
I bet it's
Spoilers
gonna
on
be
To Your
flashback.
Eternity.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, To Your Eternity was actually the reason I had this topic, because of the 4-year time skip in the middle of it. But with that, it's hard to know if that's a teaser and they're planning on actually starting there and that being a real time skip, or is that just a teaser of, this is where we're going. Don't worry, we are going to tell the story from A to B. This is just to keep you on that line and keep you coming back for more. And I think that that bugs you, Jason. You want your sense of finality, and you don't want to be left wanting more, especially when you have, with their production schedules, and who knows if another season's coming. You've been left dissatisfied so many times, it's hard to trust. Okay, I'll wait here for 3 years for the next season. That's fine.
I think they're stuck. I think they have to, because one of the key factors about this character is that he changes shapes. And if he's not going to change shape on screen, are we going to have as much fun watching him?
You're right. You're right. I forgot about that element of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be a time skip. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
have to be.
him having a life where he doesn't have to change, I found that compelling about that character. That's why I cared.
One other time skip that I could think of that really made a big difference in the show, I think for me, was Trigon. Because up until the point where he goes on his time skip, it's kind of a silly, fun, relaxed anime. Like, it is not a serious show. But after he gets back from that time skip, the entire flavor of the anime changes. It still has some silly, but that's not the dominant flavor as much anymore. It gets more philosophical, heavy. And so they use that time skip as a pivot point to change direction for the themes.
All right. So now this is the part where we turn over to our audience. We would like to hear your guys' thoughts on time skips. What anime did it well? Which anime done it bad? Where do you think it's properly used? Do you think it's a crutch for writers? Do you think it's the tasty treat that makes you keep coming back for more? So feel free to reach out to us and let us know on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or reach out to us on our website, the animebakaclub.com. There's a contact us link there, or you can leave a comment wherever you found the podcast. I know we're in a couple different places, and that should get back to us as well. We are currently watching the Idaten Deities No Only Peas, and that we'll be talking about that in our next episode. So just to recap, Jeremy's mad at if you change it from the book. Jason, I don't remember what you said. And time skips can be cool.
I don't like story threads hanging.
There you go.
There you go.
No dingleberries.
No. All right. We need to go. We need to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Sayonara.